Hello, this is Reed Tillery. Today we're going to look at the Eureka Grand Manan 9 tent. It is rated as a 6-person tent, although I wouldn't want to stay in there with 6 persons. Nevertheless, in my opinion, it's a perfect tent for 2 people with cots and all their stuff inside the tent. What I like about the tent is it's 9 by 9. It has 2 vestibules, a front vestibule and a back vestibule, and those are great for storing your gear when it's raining, storing all your dirty wet boots and wet clothes and other gear. The walls, it's very akin to a wall tent because the walls come at the base, the walls come straight down, so you can put a cot right up next to the wall of the tent and still have plenty of room in the middle. So let's look and see how this tent is set up, and let's examine in depth the features to help you decide what kind of tent you want. Here is the tent laid out on the base of the ground. As we mentioned, it is 9 by 9, and one thing I'd like to point out, if you look at one of the corner straps, it is a gold color, while the other straps on the other corners, those straps are black. The reason for that gold colored strap is to help you orient the fly on top of the tent correctly, because the fly also has one corner that has a gold strap. That's a big help when you're trying to set this tent up. The next step is to lay out on the ground the 4 poles that go with the tent. 2 poles on the right are the cross poles for the tent itself, and the 2 poles on the left support the fly. To give you an idea what the poles look like, I have put the poles together. They are shock corded together. They are made out of fiberglass and are shock corded together. And one of the things with shock cords is you have to be careful not to put a lot of stress on the shock cords, otherwise you can break them. And since these poles are so long, it's often difficult not to put stress on the shock cords, but they seem to be holding up pretty well. The fiberglass poles are so far at least, seem to be thick and rugged, and they seem to do their job. But here they are laid crosswise, and we are going to now thread the fiberglass poles through the sleeves and set up the tent. Having threaded the pole through the sleeves, you then take the pin at each corner and you put the pin in the end of the pole, and the pin is what secures the pole. Now that the poles are threaded and are fit into the pins at all 4 corners, the structure of the tent starts to take shape. At this point, the tent is freestanding, and I can move it around however I want to. If I wanted to put it in a little bit different spot, I can just move it around and adjust it. As it needs to be adjusted. At this point, you'll want to stake down the 4 corners of the tent, and you'll notice that the tent is staked down here by the black straps and not by the metal rings at each corner. Once the tent is staked down, the next step is to put on the fly. To do this, you take the two fly poles and you put them together and then insert the ends of the fly poles into the sleeves on the underside of the fly, forming an X like you see here in this picture. Here is a close-up of one of the sleeves on the underside of the fly, and it shows how the fly poles fit into those sleeves. The next thing I do here is I Velcro the cross pieces of the poles together. There is a little Velcro strap there that is made for that purpose. So I go ahead and Velcro this together before I try to put the fly on top of the tent. At this point, I've managed to get the fly on top of the tent. Of course, it's not adjusted or tied down yet, but this is the next step in the process. When you're attaching the fly, be sure you match the corner of the fly that has the gold strap with the corner of the tent that has the gold strap. If I recall the instructions for setting up the tent correctly, you are supposed to Velcro the two fly poles onto the tent itself. And I've done that from the inside. When you're setting this tent up by yourself, it is 6 feet tall, so I found it's easier to come inside the tent and set it up that way. I can just unzip a portion of the tent and get to the pole that way. Next, you'll Velcro each corner of the tent using the Velcro straps provided. On the underside of the fly are straps that fasten to the straps at the four corners of the tent. Finally, here's the tent set up with the fly staked down. What I've done here is to roll back one section of the fly to provide some ventilation for the tent. Most of the time when using this tent, that's the way we kept it set up. Even with the rain that we did have, we didn't notice rain getting into the tent. This is a view from inside the Eureka Grand Manan 9 tent. I'm just under 6 feet tall and I can stand up in this tent. I like that because it's nice to be able to stand up when you want to reorganize your gear or if you want to change clothes, and you just don't have to bend over the whole time you're inside your tent. So it's like being in a little cabin almost, and that's what makes it, I think, such a good tent if you're going to be camping for several days. One feature of this tent that some people like and maybe some people don't are these flaps that go over the windows. The flaps don't actually zip the windows closed, they just fasten down on four sides. In my experience in Florida, it doesn't really seem to matter too much. If you were in some place where it was a lot colder, that might not be a feature that would appeal to you, but with a good sleeping bag inside, I don't think it would make that much difference. These can be taken off or fastened down as you wish. The doors will zip close all the way, and you can open the entire door, or you may just want to open part of the door and expose the screen. So you've got a screen door, and then you've got the door that you can totally close, or of course you can open the screen and the door panel. Here is looking through the back door through the screen at the back vestibule. You see that there's quite a bit of space there, and that comes in handy when you have a lot of wet, soggy gear, or gear that you don't want to get wet and soggy, and you don't want it inside your tent, but you want it someplace out of the elements. I found I really enjoy both of these vestibules. I think that was the reason I bought the tent, and it turned out to be a very good reason. Here's the tent configured for hot weather with the outside of the fly rolled up, exposing the window. If you're sleeping in a sleeping bag or a cot next to that window, then that means you've got breeze right at your side. So that could be kind of nice on a hot night. Here's a look at the window from inside the tent. Well, you can see that the breeze coming through would be right there by the person sleeping by the window. And just for completeness sake, here is a view at the top of the tent from the inside. One handy feature of this tent is a gear pouch at each corner. So this is a place you can put your wallet, your keys, your glasses, your pocket knife, whatever else you have at night that you want to keep in a safe place and know where it'll be in the morning. I've never been in this tent during a big windstorm, but I understand it does pretty well. One feature I like are the tie downs that you find at each of the four corners of the fly. There are a couple of ways to configure those tie downs to give it added strength, but what I've done here is just shown you a way in which you just tie down the four corners of the fly for that added security during a windstorm. So that is the Eureka Grand Manan 9. I think it's a great tent for Florida car camping, and it probably would be a good tent for farther up north too, as long as the weather wasn't too cold. It's not, once again, it's definitely not a tent you're going to want to carry anywhere. I suppose you could horse pack it or carry it some way like that, but it's a tent that ideally you'd want to spend several nights and not have to set it up every night, because although it's not that hard to set up, there's a little to it to set it up. But after you get used to it a few times, it goes a lot faster. And with two people, it can go faster still. All in all, I'm very pleased with my Eureka Grand Manan 9 tent. We used it just a couple of weeks ago in a trip to the Everglades, and it did rain on us a good bit down there, but we stayed perfectly dry. We didn't have any problems at all. So I hope my information helps you decide what kind of tent you want. This is Reed Tillery from Florida Adventuring.